Hi guys, final week of the season coming up, and last week we had qith, released by Gottlieb in 1982. This is a classic game and notable for its interesting isometric viewpoint, but also its rotated joystick, which is a four-way stick where each diagonal controls qith. This makes things a little tricky when translating to a home system, especially if you're using a gamepad or a fixed arcade stick such as what you'll have in a cab. For me, I used a four-way stick but rotated it 45 degrees to mimic the cab, which worked well for me. Some people definitely struggled though. Regarding my enjoyment of this, I have mixed feelings. Certainly when you start, the game is pretty fun, and you begin to work things out. As I began to improve, I got increasingly frustrated as the first few boards are pretty straightforward. Level 2, round 4 is a particularly tricky one, but then level 3 is mostly okay again. Level 4 onwards, things get a bit more difficult, and then from 100,000 points, I found completing each level very tricky, which is around level 5. In my best game, I lost a few lives at 2-4, but managed to recover as you get new life every 14,000 points, and did my best of 120,000, which I was pretty pleased with, having barely played this game before this week. Regarding everyone else, it was a bit of a mixed bag. Some are big fans, including Colin and Robert. Others absolutely hated it. Paul being pretty vocal, and even Juff had to force himself to play to pick up as many points as possible given the tight battle at the top of the league table. So with this mixed bag, let's take a look at the scores. We had 18 submissions this week, reflecting this game not massively grabbing people's attention. And this also included 3 token submissions from Vintage Coin Op Reviews, Arcade GG, and a mighty 25 points from Pearl, the minimum possible that's greater than 0. In 10th, we have a return from Ian, who hasn't played since Dodonpachi. Mark is 9th, and then we have our current leader with his lowest finish of the season on a game that really doesn't suit him, and that's Big Juffer. KMA is 7th, a decent effort from Bob in 6th, and Retro Arcade Challenge in 5th. In 4th is Colin, who is a big fan of this game, so no surprises he's done well. In 3rd is Graham, and as I said last week, an arcade classic would likely favour him over Juff in our overall battle for the season. In 2nd, matching his best performance of the season, and another fan of this game is Robert. But this week's winner, and retaining hope for an overall season win, is me. That's my 2nd win of the season, after winning the opening round. I'm pretty pleased with that, and felt like I've got on top of the basic game mechanic, which is usually my aim each week. You could describe qith as a puzzle game, and that maintains my 100% record on the puzzle games we've had over the seasons. Although I'm pleased, I have no doubt Charlie Farr or Sick Boy could beat this, so still some way to go on my part. Here is the score distribution. This one's quite interesting, as we have quite a spread in the scores on what looks like 4 distinct groups. On the right, we have those who are able to get on top of this game, separating themselves from everyone else, but all falling in the same bin. That's Graham, Robert and myself. We then have a big group in the middle, reflecting a typical score on this game. Then another gap to the left, with those that got started but not very far, and we have our stragglers on the left. And now the difficulty curve. Again, this is a little different to others we've seen. There is a steep increase on the left, reflecting what is a somewhat difficult early game. That's just getting used to the controls. And then after that, there is a pretty gradual increase, reflecting a gradual difficulty increase, which makes sense given how the game operates. This and the distribution show that our top 3 were all fairly close. With only one game left this season, here is the latest table. For the final table, I will be limiting things to those that have played 5 games or more, so I've removed anyone able to do that, and Ian, Cinesteve and Vintage Coin Op Reviews need one more game to make the final table. I've adjusted the scores from those I've removed, so that's reflected here, plus this week's result. Despite only having one game to go, we've still had some movement. Both Retro Arcade Challenge and Bob are up 4 places, into 13th and 11th. That's back-to-back good results for Bob, who's climbed the places significantly. Colin has got ahead of Pingy for 8th, and Robert is up 2 into 6th after that excellent 2nd place. At the top of the table, things are getting close with that mixed up result. Graham has been consistent all season and climbs to the top of the table with that 3rd place. He's now 18 points ahead of Juffer, who's only a single point ahead of me. Anyone taking next week's win will win the season overall, so it's going down to the wire, and I'm glad to have dragged myself back into contention. So this week's game is going to be key for deciding who's going to take the overall season win. All 3 of us have games in the list, and my win sees my games doubled. Most of my games I've not played that much, so it's not a huge advantage for me. Let's set things going and see what we get. Okay, so we've got Rescue from 10 Shearers. Okay, so for the season, this is a big advantage for Graham. I don't know Rescue. I'm going to go look it up, make a video, and I'll be back in a second. So this week's game is Rescue, released by Stone Electronics in 1982. I feel like this isn't a hugely well-known game, but a quick play and it looks like a good one. You control a helicopter, and your aim is to collect the people falling down into the water via parachute. And once you've collected the requisite number of men, then you drop them off on an island that appears. Stopping you doing that are enemy helicopters and sharks in the water. What sets it apart is that it's a twin-stick game, which is great. The left joystick controls movement of your helicopter, and the right stick fires. There is also a bomb button. A quick play of this, and I quite enjoyed it, but at level 3 it seems to get a fair bit more difficult. When I was looking up the game, I saw that Alex, Nintendo Arcade, has, or at least did, have an original cab of this. He could definitely be one to watch. Given this was one of Graham's choices, I'd also fancy him for the win. It is still a shooter, so don't write Juff off either. I'd be shocked if I managed to beat those guys, but I'll give it a good go. This is another game that's on the Mister, so I'm pleased about that too. I hope you all enjoy playing some Rescue this week, and I'll be back next week with the final standings for the season. See you then.